Welcome to episode 14 of the AmericanNoise podcast, as we review Game 8 of the XFL campaign and the final game of Week 2, and the best game, in fact, of the entire season so far, leapfrogging the original first place in Seattle at DC, and that is St. Louis at Houston in Week 2. Probably the best all-around game in total. Seattle wasn't great in that very first game. They had some issues. Of course, they made critical mistakes. And St. Louis also made critical mistakes, but one of them was kind of ref ball-y, and the other is just a common mistake that'll happen every once in a while. Both of those, of course, were interceptions. Houston would get goal-to-go opportunities off of them, scored touchdowns in both cases, and basically win the game with that. This was not a very P.J. Walker-heavy game, to be honest. Yes, he scored another 3 touchdowns, but the defense set up 2 out of the 4 touchdowns for this team. Also, another notable thing, and this happened to every single situation, there was almost 20 PAT opportunities in Week 2. Only 4 of them were successful, and of the 11 by Houston, DC, and St. Louis combined, the top 3 teams, only 1 worked, and it was one Houston did in this game. That is really weird. I think everybody just needs to go to the drawing board and just go 2 like 90% of the time. That's the one that's going to work. It's going to get you more points in the long run. Just try that. But anyways, looking at the chart, St. Louis actually had way more yards of offense, 390 to be exact, and Houston only had 238. And that's also because St. Louis had a ton more offensive plays. Houston actually had the more yards per play, 4.9 to 4.7. But again, St. Louis also with the most first downs. 11 out of 19 on third down and 3 for 4 on fourth. Houston was 2 of 10 on third and didn't even have a fourth down chance. But, of course, the main thing was those 2 St. Louis interceptions. That is what killed them in the end, and they just could not recover from them. And Houston would, of course, stake its claim to be possibly the best team in the XFL quite early, and they showed that last week was not a fluke. It only took them about 9 plays for them to get a touchdown again. It took them 4 minutes. It was only a few-yard drive. It wasn't very big. They immediately started at the 42, so it was only 58 yards. But they would eventually claw down the field. They would have to stop. It was only like a 32-yard drive. I misread that. I thought it was a touchdown drive. This was not. This was a field goal drive. It was 9 plays for 32 yards. Very unusual, can still eventually hit a 44-yarder from the 26-yard line after Walker had thrown a couple of incompletions to stall out the possession. But Houston still gets the early 3-0 lead, and the defense can prove themselves against Tamu. They had some issues with that. Of course, they would eventually with those 2 interceptions. But early, the St. Louis offense looked really good. Another 9-play drive would commence, but this one would end in a St. Louis touchdown for 6 points. On a 3rd and 15 from the Houston 25, Tamu throws it short flat routes to Jones, and the goal was just to get some yards to set up for a field goal kick. They get a touchdown of this play for the simple fact that the blocking was excellent, and there wasn't a Houston defender even near Jones, blocking or no blocking. If without blocking, he still would have gotten inside the 5. Someone missed an assignment. There was no one even close in a red jersey to the ball carrier. An absolute collapse on defense in that play. It's 6-3 St. Louis, of course. As with all of conversions except for one in this game, it has failed. This one's a 2-pointer. Again, a huge thing. At least they tried for 2 points that time, I guess. Houston gets the ball back. They only take 6 plays this time to get something going. They started the ball at their own 34 and would just churn out yardage. On a 2nd and 6 from their own 49, Walker hit Lewis for a solid 33-yard gain, which eventually would set up a 2nd and 7 at the St. Louis 7. It's 2nd and goal, basically. Phillips throws a short middle pass to Cam Phillips. P.J. Walker to Cam Phillips is the most deadly QB to wide receiver combination in the league so far, even deadlier than I would say Cardell to Rocket Ross. And it's a 7-yard gain into the end zone for 6 points. Houston scores another touchdown. It's the 5th one Walker has all season, and it's a 9-6 ball game. And 2-point, of course, unsuccessful. But 12 minutes in, and both offenses are clicking, and only one offense really clicked in the first half of any of the 3 games before, and that was DC. So it's nice to see 2 offenses trading it back and forth. That would stop for a while. 4 straight 3-and-outs, 2 by each team. St. Louis, Houston, St. Louis, Houston. Both teams having 2 straight 3-and-out possessions. St. Louis would eventually get the ball again and actually get a first down in the 2nd and 3 from their own 30. They would get a Christine Michael 4-yard rush up the middle that got them to their own 34. Tamu decides to try to break a deep play open, get the offense back into rhythm, and it goes straight for Pearson L., probably the best slot wide receiver in the league, but you got him hit him correctly. He didn't, and Brown is all over the interception. He gets it at midfield, and he returns it all the way to the 1-yard line. It's not a pick six. It's pretty much the closest thing to it. Another of the issues with these interceptions was the fact that Houston got all the way into 1st and goal range, and in this case, the 1-yard line. St. Louis could not have its offense tackle people, and that became a major problem on these interceptions. As soon as Houston got that ball on defense, they did whatever they well pleased. One play, Butler just runs left guard in the end zone, and it is 15-6 Houston. They have a 9-point lead. Still one possession. St. Louis gets the ball back. They drive all the way down to the Houston 39. They get a 5-yard scramble by Tamu to make it 2nd and 5 at the 34. Michael goes up the left tackle. 3 yards. Okay, let's try it again on 3rd and 2. Nothing doing. He is stuffed at the line of scrimmage. It's 4th and 2 at the Houston 31 with about 6 minutes left in the first half. The Battlehawks could punt at the 31, which seems foolhardy, especially the way Houston offense has been clicking. You could go for a 48-yard field goal attempt, which would make it a 6-point game, or you can go for it. They go for it, which is probably the right call, but the play call was awful. They hand it off to Matt Jones, 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he doesn't even make it to the blue line. He is stuffed for a -1-yard loss, and Houston gets the ball on a turnover on downs. The only 4th down conversion that St. Louis would actually fail to convert all game. They would make 3 others. But Houston gets the ball back, and the Roughnecks make St. Louis pay for the turnover. 7 plays and 68 yards in 3 minutes and 30 seconds leads to a 9-yard pass, actually, to Cam Phillips. Again, it's Walker to Phillips, the second time that connection's happened. And it is 21-6 Houston. So, things are getting really dicey for the Battlehawks. It's now 21-6 with 2 minutes left in the half. They are on the ropes. And what do they do with the ball in a 2-minute drill? They 3-and-out and have to punt it away. Houston 3-and-outs in return, and St. Louis just kneels on it. But the Houston defense is holding off St. Louis quite well. They've only given up 1 touchdown and have gotten an interception. They're doing their part. They're showing that, yes, maybe that first half against actually giving up 17 points in what should have been 22 Knopf was actually a fluke, maybe. It wouldn't be, as we would see, because eventually the Battlehawks and Tamu would find a way back into this game. But Houston with the dominating first half, and many thought this was how the game was going to end. Houston was just going to run over St. Louis and prove there were just 2 really good teams in the league and not 3. However, St. Louis was not ready for that connotation. They decided to go and attack. First drive, it is a long 13-play, 72-yard duel down the field. 3rd and 1 at the goal line. Tamu flips it to Pearson L., his slot receiver, in a short yard situation. He snags it, touchdown, and it is a 21-12 ball game with 9 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. The 2-pointers unsuccessful, as is, of course. All PAT that's up for 1 this game were successful. But it is now a 9-point game. If they can make a 3-point PAT after a touchdown, it is, in fact, a 1-possession football game. Houston gets the ball back and 3-and-outs. St. Louis will get the ball on a punt. They set up shop at their own 40, 60 yards out. And in another 13-play drive, they get a touchdown. Tamu scrambles for 4 yards on a 1st and goal to find his way in the end zone. And after a 1-point failure, it is a 3-point game. It is 21-18 Houston. And the defense is absolutely tired if you are the Houston Oilers 2.0. St. Louis has had the ball for about 12 out of the first 13 and a half minutes in this 3rd quarter. P.J. Walker and the Houston offense has to do something. They get one first down, and then they have to punt the football away as we enter the fourth quarter. St. Louis is on a roll. However, they were pinned inside the 1-yard line, and it gets worse. 2 straight false starts pins them to their quarter-yard line. Not the best situation for the Battlehawks. They do eventually find a way out of it. They convert a third down to 7. They start to move down the field. They're looking really good. And they have a 1st and 10 at the Houston 45. Tamoog looks for Pearson out in the slot. It's a flat route, and the Roughnecks are all over it. Harris drags down the slot receiver for a -4-yard loss. It's 2nd and 14 at the Houston 49, and Tamu has had enough. He's going deep for Russell. Probably his 2nd or 3rd receiver on the depth chart, but he's probably one of the top last in this league, to be honest, despite being 3rd on the depth chart. St. Louis is probably the 2nd best wide receiving core all season, just behind DC. And he looks for him, and he finds a Houston Roughneck instead. Johnson snags the ball at the Houston 30, and he runs it all the way back to the St. Louis 6. An over 60-yard return on the interception sets up another instant goal-to-go opportunity. 3 plays. Walker tosses to Phillips. 3 times Walker to Phillips has resulted in a touchdown. It is 27-18, and then it's 28-18. The only PAT successful by the top 3 teams in the league. Walker gets a 1-point attempt rush into the end zone, and it is 18-28 with 9:32 left. It is a 2-possession game, but St. Louis is undeterred. It's the ball back. They only get 1 first down. They have a 3rd and 8 at their own 47. Temu drops back, and the offensive line coverage absolutely breaks. Schwab drags the quarterback down for a -8-yard sack. They have to punt it away. Houston gets the ball at their own 19. They 3 and out in kind, so St. Louis gets the ball at 5.5 minutes left and has another chance to make a game out of this. 4th and 2 from their own 43. Temu finds Russell into Houston territory for 8 yards. 3rd and 18 at the St. Louis 43. Temu flips it out to Michael on the flat route. He gets 11 yards out of it, and it is 4th and 7 at the, it's at the Houston 46. They got knocked out of territory. They're back in the Houston territory, and then they get knocked out of it again, back to the own 49 with a false start. It's 4th and 12. They are not punting. There's 2 minutes left in the game. 2-minute warning time. First play out of it. Tamu looks for Washington, nails him he finds Russell for 15 yards to convert it, and the next play, Tamu finds Washington for 36. 2 straight excellent bullet line passes by the signal caller. By, some would say, the 3rd wheel QB in the league behind Cardell and P.J. Walker. Has gotten St. Louis to within 4 points. It is 20-24. They missed the 1-pointer. They should have gone to 2 to see if they could have gotten a field goal victory instead of a field goal tie. But it doesn't matter. Houston will run out the clock after 2 solid first downs. And that's the end of the game. They just kneel on to finish. And that's it. St. Louis pretty much lost this game away. Now, on that 2nd interception, there was a supposed possible neutral zone infraction by the Roughnecks. There has been a lot of hubbub made about that the dude was across the line or was at least encroaching. But you've got to check to see if the referee's thrown a flag. He didn't. He shouldn't have tried forced that free play into double coverage. That was his own fault, and it eventually led to their downfall. I mean, if they get that call, not only does Houston probably not score on after the interception, but also St. Louis could have driven to their own touchdown there. But it's how it is. Houston confirms their best team in the league status, and they get to play the winless Vipers as a reward. That's probably going to be a massacre in Florida. Meanwhile, St. Louis will fight for 2nd in the East in the first professional football game played in St. Louis for half a decade as they take on the New York Guardians. Anyway, this was undoubtedly, again, the best game in the league. There was a very solid crowd in Houston, over 15,000, over 1.5 million on FS1, which shows that 1.5 million to 2 million people are hardcore XFL fans. That is a really good solid number for a first year out of the gate, and we'll see if they can keep that up. Anyways, that's been it for the Week 2 review. Next episode, we go over Week 3 and probably the most predictable week, which means that eventually 2 or 3 teams are going to get upset. But maybe it will be predictable and we'll finally go 4-0 once, or we'll end up 3-1 somehow. But yeah, all the point spreads are just wild. There's no one who's even a close underdog. Everyone's a heavy underdog or favorites. And in fact, 3 of the road teams are favorites. An interesting sign. But we'll go over that next time on the American Noise Podcast in episode 15. This was, of course, episode 14, and we will see you next time. Your host has been Andrew Stiles.